On this day in America, it's called Thanksgiving Day. So we're going to thank the Buddha, all right, and make big, big fat offerings. Wonderful. All right, come on then.
Sashi perki yukshingmeto drabri raplinji nihidek yang padi sange shindu mekche hovagi Dukunam Dashingla Chöpakshu Jetsun Lama Dampakyenam Keche Kutala Kien Sechu Sintri Jita Sampe Duje Shin Mala Sakye Chuki Chapa Vaptu So Idam Gururatna Madalakami Achayami.
Good, wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. So now our little, as usual, as always, our two thoughts. The first thought is this one of reminding ourselves of our reliance on the Buddha and his teachings. And the second two lines stating this outrageous, amazing, expansive, altruistic motivation or reason for doing this action of listening to these teachings. So thinking, I'll say it first time in English. So thinking, until we are enlightened, we are going to rely upon the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And then by the virtuous karmic seeds we plant in our mind, from listening to these teachings, may they ripen in the future, no matter how long it takes, as our Buddhahood. So then we are able to perfectly benefit all sentient beings. Sangye charang choke chognam la jangcho badu dagni kyap suchi dagi chonyen gi personam ki drola penchir sangye drupha shog. I see you keep turning the volume down. I shout that loud, do I? Down to 40. That's amazing. I better whisper and talk like that, like a good Buddhist. Is that better? I'm glad the volume works. There, she's gone up again. Look at that. I'm sorry, I'm being naughty. Sangye chodan sokye chognam la jancho badu dagni kyapsu chi dagi chonyen gi personam ki drola penchir sangye dropa shog. That's it. We're done. Okay, I'll go back to shouting. So, okay, people, come on, let's go. This is our last, isn't it? Of this particular module. They all merge into each other. There's so much information. But my point is what I've been trying to do this last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, is I haven't gone into much detail. I'm trying to get, the main thing I'm trying to do is get you the essence, to get to understand the essential points of each of these stages. I mean, all the details are in your course notes. This, all there, masses and masses and masses of details in the course notes for this module. So what I want to do today, our last one, is go through the essence of junior school, the first scope, the essence of middle scope, high school. Now we'll go into details a bit, the essence of the great scope, the compassion wing, and these are the wisdom wing and the compassion wing, and then we'll touch upon Tantra. And so to try to, once you understand psychologically the stages of practice, then this lamrim suddenly comes alive for us. It really takes us time. Like I said, when I first heard the lamrim teachings from Lama Zopa Rinpoche in 1976, when I was like 31 or something, I heard every word he said for that 1 month, but I did not understand. I had no idea how to get hold of what he was saying, I didn't understand I didn't understand the implications of it. I didn't understand the point of it. I just could not get this idea, this information I was getting that seemed so arcane, how I couldn't see how we could psychologically apply it. And as we know, if we're students of these Gelugpa Lamas, Lama Zopa especially, all he ever talks about is the lamrim, meditate on the lamrim. But it takes us time, because we have so many, I think the reason, obviously, is we have so many misconceptions of what we think, quote unquote, meditate means, We've got so many misconceptions. And once we clear those up, and then when we see that's a good start, what does the word to meditate mean in Tibetan? It's a big surprise. I remember, I'm telling you, I remember years and years ago, a young German woman came to Kathmandu when I was based there back in the 80s, I think, or 90s. I can't remember. Maybe the 80s, I can't remember. And she came to Kathmandu because she'd been told she had cancer and she had a couple of years to live. So like many people, it was a wake-up call, and she started to think about the meaning of life. So she came to Kathmandu and she said she wanted to meet a Lama, and so I introduced her to this old Lama, and she said, can you please tell me how to meditate? And he said, oh, no, you can't meditate. You don't know any of the teachings. And that's a bit confusing because we think, oh, well, meditate means watch your breath. Meditate means close your eyes and do something mystical. But the actual meaning of the word to meditate, the verb in Tibetan, this is the verb gom, the word gom. And it means literally, it's translated literally as to become familiar, to familiarize yourself, to familiarize your mind with what? Well, with that which is true, according to the Buddha, with wisdom and with compassion. What else? So that means, to sit, we think of meditation as watching your breath, but that's just one technique, a concentration technique that is crucial to cultivate in order to hone the mind to a very fine degree of subtlety, so it can do the actual job of familiarizing it with the Dharma. So what does the Dharma refer to? It refers to these various points. It refers to the way that things exist according to the Buddha. He's from his own observation, he's not, and this is the crucial point, again, reminding us, we think of religious philosophy as a belief system. So he's got to memorize it and then believe it. Well, that's like going to school and learning about math and then memorizing it all, and you can repeat the answer back because you believe in it. We would laugh at that attitude. Every other body of knowledge we know just to merely believe math, to believe science, to believe cooking is completely absurd. It's unintelligent. You have to first listen, familiarize yourself with those theories, then you practice it, you put it into practice. Now, the difficulty is, and this is the point, initially, we can't distinguish between the intellectual understanding of karma, for example, and the experience of knowing it. We can't see those differences. So that's where the big danger in our culture, especially in the modern world, we're all super educated, we're super intellectual, we've got super intelligent minds, intellectual minds, and we don't, it's like, and especially secondly, and especially in our culture, like this whole Socratic approach to philosophy is you listen objectively, you learn about those theories, but you dare not put it into practice. In fact, you wouldn't put it into practice. You'd be considered to be inferior because that's too subjective. So there's all these obstacles in our minds about spiritual, about philosophy that prevent us from hearing the Buddhist approach, So if you go to a Zen center, you wouldn't hear the philosophy. Some of those who might be interested would study it, but the real point of quote unquote practice would be to sit and do a particular kind of meditation. There's no contradiction, but this here, the Tibetan, and even in the Tibetan traditions, if you go to some Kagyu centers, this is not being rude. It's like the different traditions in Tibet have different approaches. Many of my friends who are Kagyu practitioners, they've got some karma with the Kagyu practice. They jump in the deep end immediately. They start to do their nundros, they do their prostrations, they do their visualizations of the Buddha, they recite all their mantras. They don't hear any philosophical teachings. So each person's quite different. So here we're discussing Lama Tsongkhapa's tradition, which is the tradition of my lamas, Lama Zopa Lama Yeshe, the tradition of this center in Zurich. And it's you listen, you combine, you start from the beginning, you listen to the philosophical teachings, but you listen to them in particular in the framework of the lamrim, which is this experiential presentation. And even that seems a bit theoretical to us. So let's just go through the essential points of these three stages of the lamrim, okay? As Lama Zopa would politely call the first level of practice, the teachings and practices suitable to the disciple of the least capability, which sounds very arcane. Well, I'd call it junior school. It's just a simple logic, a simple concept that we kind of can grab hold of. Then you've got the next level of practice for the Lama Zopa, the teachings and practices suitable to the disciple of the middle capability. high school. Why not? Now that's the wisdom wing. And if you graduated there, and that's why I find this junior school, high school, university, postgraduate a really good concept in English, because you know that you study first, then this, then that, and then you graduate. Well, here, this is a course. It's what lamrim means. It's a course that you enter into one stage at a time. The teachings and practices suitable to the student of the least capability. Then you go to high school and you now engage in the teachings and practices suitable to the disciple of the middle capability. Now, if you graduated there, you would be what's called a Hinayana practitioner. You do all the practices that you do if you're in Thailand or Burma. You would combine your meditation, you would understand karma, you would abide by the laws of karma, you would live in vows, you'd then start to get some renunciation, you'd understand attachment, you'd get concentration, you'd realize emptiness, and eventually in one life or other, you would achieve your own liberation from suffering and its causes. And honey child, you are out of here. You don't come back. But here we are on the Mahayana component. So we do all of that, but then we don't leave yet. We don't graduate yet. We go to the university level. We go to the great scope, the teachings and practices suitable to the disciple of the greatest capability. And we add compassion to the mix. We add bodhichitta to the mix. And then we do the six perfections of the Bodhisattva. And then finally, we realize emptiness and we combine the wisdom wing and the compassion wing. And then one day, one lifetime or other, many, many lifetimes in the future, we graduate as a Buddha. Before which, though, in the last stages of which we would enter into the postgraduate level of practice, the most advanced level, and that would be the Vajrayana, the tantric practices. So in other words, the lamrim, what it is, it started with Atisha in the 11th century, somewhere like that. He's one of the great scholars of the Nalanda tradition from India, and he was invited to Tibet. And then he saw that Dharma had been there for a couple of 100 years and then kind of maybe lost the plot a little bit. So he wrote this simple little text, which is the basis of Tsongkhapa's lamrim, 14th century Tsongkhapa. And it's really this little text called The Light That Guides You on Your Way. And he took the essential points from this vast body of knowledge from this great Nalanda monastic university system that was flourishing in India from the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th century, whatever, gradually began to die out at that time. And it moved itself to Tibet really intact. So he took the essential points, and this is the point about the lamrim, he took the essential points from this vast body of knowledge that tracks itself back to these Indians before the Buddha, but this vast body of knowledge. And he took the essential points of all of this vast body of knowledge and he presented them in this packaging, the lamrim, in an orderly way and an experiential way. So in other words, it's easy to study this philosophy, and this is our point in the modern world. I mean, we've got brilliant minds. There are so many philosophical views. There are so many views on the planet about how things are, the meaning of life, blah, 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 and Buddhism indeed is one of those. So it's easy to study all that and getting super sophisticated, super intelligent, super knowledgeable. I mean, even the Buddhist views, when you start to study it philosophically in the monastic university system in Tibet, which comes directly from India. And I just did 2 years of this, 2 years back in the 70s. I studied 2 years, just the beginnings of 4 of the texts that one studies, and what they study for 25 years in the monasteries in Tibet, based on the Nalanda tradition. That this information is super interesting. It's super detailed. It drills deeply down into the meaning of life and exactly reality. And what is this? I mean, it's extraordinary. And I mean, they study in the Tibetan monastery something 20, 25 years, So it's easy to get very excited. And I certainly was truly excited about this knowledge. It was so amazing. But for me, because I've been a nun for a few years by that point, and it was really powerful for me how studying this seemingly intellectual knowledge, it was totally relevant to daily life, totally relevant to practice. And that if we hear it not like that, we're in serious trouble. That's why Lama Yeshe, from the very beginning, when he started teaching Western people, he could see how super educated we were. And he refused to even, for example, he didn't bother about us learning Tibetan. He said, I'm really shocked that when my students start to study Tibetan, they start to become intellectual and they start to argue with each other and they don't practice. It's always easy. And this is our tradition in our monastic university system. Like I mentioned, I remember Jeffrey Hopkins, Professor Jeffrey Hopkins, one of the an American professor, one of the first translators for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who'd been a Buddhist since the 60s. And then in 1976, he told me, when I worked with him, when we commissioned him, when we offered to publish his thesis back in his thesis was the 70s and early 80s, and when I was based at Wisdom Publications in England in the early 80s, and this meditation on emptiness, his thesis, it was only available at that time as microfiche, you know. So we said we'd publish it. We offered to publish it. And I remember discussing with him that in 76, he was the professor of this new department at the University of South Carolina or something. I forget where it was. Maybe, yeah, somewhere like that, where Jefferson did all his business, you know. And he told me that he was one of the first professors of this Buddhist department at a university who was an actual practitioner, not just a professor, not an intellectual, but also a practitioner. And he said he was looked down upon by his philosophical brothers. They were brothers, no doubt, probably all white men at that time, probably still mostly white men, who knows, and who were the different departments in the university. And he said they were he was considered to be inferior. And this is the interesting point, because he practiced what he taught, and that's considered inferior in the West, because we don't trust the subjective, you see. Whereas the absolute opposite in Buddhism is it's a bizarre idea to go to these monastic universities, study all the lamrim, study all the text, which is the lamrim is the essence of, and then get your degree as a geshe and only be merely intellectual. I mean, they'd chuck you out. So this is the point that we have to remember. And that's why I couldn't get my head around all this when I first heard the teachings from Lama Zopa. What do you mean make this experiential? What do you mean this is experiential? You know, I didn't understand what they were talking about. So the first scope of practice, junior school, as I call it, the teachings and practices suitable for the disciple of the least capability, the essence of it is the culmination of those various points. It's abiding by the laws of karma. So what's it mean by the experience? What does it mean? It's the culmination of that first level. Well, first, the preliminary practices you look into and think about the logic of having a spiritual teacher. That's Tsongkhapa added that at the very beginning as a preliminary practice to prime your minds. The next one is, and Lama Zopa started with this when he started teaching Westerners. He had to teach about what the mind is. Because, you know, we come into the teachings as a bunch of hippies thinking our mind is our brain. So we better learn to know what it is that becomes enlightened. So it's the mind is beginningless, and it's got this marvelous potential to be a Buddha. We learn about that. The next preliminary practice coming from a teacher in the 11th century is think about the preciousness of this human life. So what's his agenda there? He cobbled together these points, all from Buddha's teachings. His agenda is to get us to have a wake-up call. Oh my God, I better not waste this precious life. Now we're ready to enter into junior school. I better start doing something. So you enter into junior school, entry level, first teaching Buddha gives us, that teacher points out, it's the teaching, Buddha's vast, extensive teachings on impermanence. But because a teacher's agenda is to not just want to waste this precious life, now we enter into junior school and start thinking about impermanence, but he wants to increase our wake-up call. So what does he do? We think about impermanence in relation to death. I mean, subtle impermanence is an amazing teaching in Buddhism. It's almost, you can confuse it with emptiness. He doesn't get us to think about that here. He doesn't even get us to think about the impermanence of your cup and your computer. No. He gets us right between the eyeballs. Honey child, you're going to die and you have no idea when. So increase your wake-up call, get a sense of urgency, and do not waste this precious life. Then he leads us to the next point, which is coming from the vast body of knowledge in Buddhism about the whole universe. All these realms of existence. I mean, there's a vast view of the trillions of sentient beings, all the way from the formless beings to the form beings to the desire realm. In the desire realm, you've got the gods and the anti-gods, the humans, the animals, the predators, the hell beings, all this spectrum of types of sentient beings. But again, a teacher's agenda here is increase our wake-up call. Precious life could die at any moment. Oh my God, what am I going to do about this? The next one is even more of a wake-up call, which we poor Westerners can't cope with. He says, guess what? The likely possibilities of your type of rebirth when you die, and you don't know when you're going to die. Honey child, you could go to the hell realms. You could go to the spirit realm. You could be born as an animal. Not cool. I'm sorry. So he gets us now, taken from this vast body of knowledge about the whole Buddhist cosmological view of the universe, talking about the suffering of the lower realms his agenda is to increase our wish not to waste this precious life, because they're the type of rebirths you could get. So then you think, oh my God, whom can I turn to? Next point, take refuge. Rely upon the Buddha. You learn all about what the Buddha is, the Dharma, the Sangha. And then you have this, and whom can I turn to give me the methods to stop this kind of suffering? So it's all of this is taken from the vast body of knowledge of Buddhism, but presented in this orderly way for the benefit of the disciple to get the. So then the next point is the culmination of junior school. Now we finally actually start to practice. This is all preliminaries. This is really priming our minds, thinking about impermanence, thinking about death, thinking about the lower realms, thinking about refuge. This gets us to now think, well, I better put my money where my mouth is. I better start practicing. What's practice? Abide by the laws of karma, honey child. Now this gets us to the essence of Buddha's entire philosophical view, that, honey, you're not made by a creator. Your mind is not the brain. Your mummy and daddy do not create you. They give you a body, no probs. But you are the creator of yourself. Every millisecond of what you think and say and do programs you, turns you into the person you become. So you get this sense of enthusiasm that you realize you are the boss, that you don't want future suffering. And this is the point of this first level of practice. The practice isn't teaching suitable to the disciple of the least capability. Here, the essence of this practice, abiding by the laws of karma, is merely to stop you from suffering in the lower realms in the next life, so that at least you abide by the laws of karma, and you can guarantee, because logic, karma takes care, it's a logical system, no one runs it, there's no boss, there's no creator, there's no punisher, there's no rewarder, you're the boss, baby child. You can ensure, if you abide by the laws of karma, live in vows, don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, that you'll die a happy death. In the next life, you get another decent human mummy, and you'll have access to the teachings, and you'll keep on moving on your spiritual path. Now you can do more. You can go to high school now. You can begin to actually become a Buddhist. Why do I say that? Because karma, which is really just good ethics, that's common to all decent beings on this planet. A good communist, a good Catholic, a good Muslim would agree, you don't kill, you don't steal, you don't lie. Okay, for different reasons. The creator religions say you must not do those things because God said. Buddha says you must not do those things because, honey child Rabina, you don't want future suffering. So the logic is different for why you do them, but they're common. So now we get to the unique approach of a Buddhist, which is the second scope, high school, and now you drill down and get to the root of the problem, the source of why your body and speech do harm to others, which cause you future suffering. We now get to the mind, and now we start to really drill down and learn to understand the mind, like we've been talking. You learn about delusions, you learn about the virtues, and your key job here is to begin to recognize attachment and all the other crazy delusions, because they are the source of your suffering. So now you want to give them up. You want renunciation of suffering and its causes. So this is a more sophisticated level of practice. Now, this is where you actually become a Buddhist. This is where the unique approach of the Buddha. Now, as I said before, if you want to graduate at high school, you'd be a Theravada or a practitioner. And you would now continue to do all the work you've done already. You would now get concentration. You'd now realize emptiness, and eventually one life or other, you'd get nirvana. You'd achieve your own liberation from suffering and its causes. And honey, you won't come back. Bye-bye, I'm out of here, babe. Now, this is an interesting point. Many of the teachings in Buddhism would say that now your mind has ceased completely, and you've disappeared off the face of the universe. And as His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, we Mahayanas have a problem with that, because your mind never ends, as far as the Mahayana view is concerned, or particularly the Prasangika view, the view that our Lamas just teach. So here, if you did go into nirvana, what that means is you've cut the root of suffering and its causes. We discussed this last week. You've cut the root of suffering and its causes. You've cut the delusions. You've cut the root delusion. You've realized emptiness. You would have perfected that if you'd achieved nirvana at this point. And then you disappear into subtle bliss. You don't disappear. The mind is endless. You would disappear into a state of subtle bliss. But the Mahayanas say that one day Buddha will come along and tap you on the shoulder and say, okay, honey, you've out of this bliss now, you've got to come back onto the Mahayana path, become a bodhisattva, achieve bodhichitta, become a bodhisattva, and then become a Buddha for the sake of sentient beings. And I heard one Lama told me, one Lama said, his teacher, that getting out of that bliss and getting reborn again to become a bodhisattva is the worst suffering in the universe, to give up that bliss. So we can only imagine levels of mind like that. It just sounds like fantasy to us, So we carry on to the next level, the teachings and practices suitable to the disciple of the greatest capability. And now we having controlled our body and speech in junior school, having controlled our mind in high school, having with both of these ceased the suffering of the lower realms and even ceased the suffering of the upper realms, because we've given up attachment, we can now go to the Bodhisattva path and add compassion and all the virtues to the mix and become this outrageous being, having made this paradigm shift. And we're going to talk about that this today, you see, the Bodhisattva path. And we have got this bodhicitta, and then we practice the 6 perfections, and we combine the first 4 perfections are the perfection of the compassion wing, and the last 2 are the perfection of the wisdom wing. And we perfect these over life after life after life until eventually we achieve Buddhahood. And then we can manifest in the universe in billions of bodies for the sake of billions of beings and billions of universes for billions of eons. That's your job as a Buddha. So that's the essence of the entire path. The details are in your course notes. Module 4, module 3, you know, the details in your course notes that you've got now. More details I gave. And then the whole discovering Buddhism is an unpacking of all of these points, you know. Okay, what time is it? All right, fine. That's the overview of the entire path, which is the overview of this module. But stages of practice according to your capability. In other words, you cannot possibly leap into the compassion wing and get bodhicitta if you haven't been to high school and have drilled down and looked into your mind and got renunciation. And you cannot possibly leap into high school and drill down and look into your mind and give up and recognize attachment and give it up until you've done junior school, which means control the servants of your body and speech first. When we understand that, we understand how it is psychologically stage by stage by stage, you know. Now, if there are any questions on this concept of these stages of practice, if there are, please ask me now. If not, I can then go into the compassion wing, which is what I want to discuss today. If there are not any, that's perfectly fine.
There's a couple, Nina maybe first, Nina, and then Stina.
Go and then go, talk to me.
Hello.
Hello, darling.
I would like to know, how do I know when I can proceed from one stage to the next? Because as I understood you, we have to go first with the preliminaries, then junior school, high school. So it's really like an orderly way. So how do I?
Exactly, that's exactly right. So that's a really good question, Nina. But let me turn it back to you as a question. If you're studying how to play the piano, then if I ask you the question, Nina, how would I know when to go to grade 2? How would I know when to go to grade 3? What's your answer?
I think when I know how to play the first.
It's all laid out, isn't it? It's all laid out, isn't it? So if you're playing piano and you know you've just passed your grade 1 exams, you know you're eager to move to the next level of grade 2, but you also know, Nina, that you could even try a grade 5 piece. You could try it, couldn't you? There's nothing wrong, but you know you would not accomplish grade 5 until you've accomplished grade 4, at least from the point of view of at least passing the exams. But you also know, Nina, every time you accomplish each grade, you also can increase your ability of grade 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you can't perfect grade 1 first by definition. You pass grade 1 to some degree, and now you go to grade 2. Then as you practice grade 2, you're already increasing your ability at the grade 1 music, aren't you? You're growing all the time, aren't you? Do you see my point here?
Yeah.
It's the same here, darling. It's the same here. You have to practice all of them. You have to practice all of them. So in your daily practice, if you're a Tibetan Buddhist, let's say you've taken an empowerment into Tara. Well, that's Tantra, that's postgraduate. Let's say one day you will be kind to your neighbor. That's practicing compassion wing. Let's say you control your thoughts. That's practicing high school. Let's say you control your speech. That's practicing junior school. So you need to do all. You can practice all. You will practice all, but you won't accomplish bodhicitta until you've accomplished renunciation. You won't accomplish renunciation until you've accomplished the first stages. That's the way it's presented. Are you understanding me?
Yes, I think the only thing that is difficult for me is that when we compare it to music, for example, I have someone who tells me, or I I have an output like a music piece, which I compare to the music piece that some good musician has done, and then I can compare it and know, okay, I've done it the same way and now it's right, and I find it different.
It's the same here. What's the difference? You've got a teacher. You've got many teachers. You've got the Dalai Lama. You've got your lamas. They're the examples out there. Clearly, it's more difficult, but they are your examples out there of what you would be like if you accomplished Buddhahood. They're out there, and that's why you have to have teachers who, for you, are the examples of all of this path. So you follow them as your examples. It's more subtle, obviously, because we're talking about the mind. But this is exactly the point. It's not hidden. That's the reason why you need teachers, good mentors.
Yeah, maybe I think because the internalizations or the experience that I have to make in meditation is just recognizable by myself. So I think maybe that's the why it's feels.
It is difficult. Of course, it's difficult, but you still need a teacher. So if you've got to, you still use your teachers as your example of by reading their words. And then it is more subtle. It is more difficult, very obviously, because the mind is way more subtle than playing the piano. But the principles are the same, sweetheart. Mm-hmm. And that's where we have to, we have to first have a sense of the whole path, then know where we're at in it. Now, strictly speaking, most of us haven't even realized death and impermanence yet, but all we can do is listen, think about it, meditate on it, and every day it goes a bit deeper, a bit deeper, a bit deeper. You can argue you can't really begin to get realizations until you've got single point of concentration, but then you can argue you can't really get far until you realize emptiness. So of course these stages are there, but it becomes more and more integrated, first intellectually, and then we apply it every day in life. So we can see our progress. Like in the very beginning, you can't control your speech, let's say, and then 1 year later, you actually can control your speech when you go to the family Christmas dinner and you don't say those mean words to your brother. So you go, oh, wow, I've made some progress. So there are lots of criteria we can use every day for our progress. No doubt about it. That's our behavior as well as our mind. Do you understand?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Good, Neela. Good, darling. Thank you. Yes, Stina, yes.
My question isn't actually about the stages that you presented, but it's something that's been lingering since we talked about karma last week.
Good, yes. Good, yes.
Yeah. Where to start? Like cause and effect. I've been thinking about my own work. I work as a lawyer for a nonprofit.
Yes.
And
yes.
We try to help people. People come to us in suffering and distress.
Yes, of course, exactly.
We try to find like practical solutions for them.
Yes, exactly.
To make problems go away.
That's right, exactly. Of course.
What's the purpose of this?
What do you mean the purpose of that?
Their situation is the result of karma.
That's right.
And if we change the material external situation
yes.
by removing, let's say, a problem with an employee.
That's right, exactly.
Their karma will still, if we, by changing the material circumstances, lessen the suffering.
Yes, this is the point. This is a really good point, Sina. You see, karma is referring to the first, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So karma is referring to the general law. It's a shorthand for the law that, first of all, everything we think and do and say sows seeds in the mind that will then ripen in the future. But our karma ripens, one, as a bunch of tendencies, but two, as experiences at the hands of others, because we're very interdependent beings. So Mike, let's say I come to you and I've been accused of stealing, let's say. So you represent me and you present the truth, and I go to the court and they hear the truth, and then I'm seen to be innocent. Well, then due to my past stealing, someone accuses me of stealing. That's called the experience, similar to the cause of past stealing. But I didn't steal, but I've been seen to steal. So 2, I've got the good karma to meet a lawyer who can help me. So you're one of my, also the result of one of my virtuous karmas, that you're a person whom I must have helped 47 lives ago. Now you can help me. Some people who've been accused of stealing, believe me, in America, all the poor people I know in prison, no money, no lawyers, no family, they've got no merit at all. But let's say I've got the merit to meet a person like you, and I've got the merit due to past generosity in another life that I can pay you the money, and then you are kind to me. That's the fruit of my past kindness as well. You represent me in the court. Now you, because of your past non-lying, the judge and the jury believe your words. I've also got the merit to have a lawyer who's got a good reputation. All of these things are put together. And then the judge who I've got some karma with to believe you and to believe that I didn't steal. And then the jury who also I have the virtuous karma with will then take me off. So everything is dependent arising. There's the original virtuous, the fundamental karma of my own past action, that it ripens in all these different ways, and they all work together, and the karma keeps shifting and changing. You with me?
I am, and I am relieved, because I was sort of thinking that all this is for nothing, that it's better that the karma is played out, that this person can
I understand that point. That's a good point. No,
Yeah.
that's also very true. That's a very interesting point. On the Bodhisattva path, if let's say I'm practicing on the Bodhisattva path, I might just decide to accept it and know that if it does play out, I'm purifying very quickly my karma, and I'm very happy about that. So many of my friends in prison, they don't have money, lawyers, so they are learning to accept it, and they are playing it out, and they're learning to see that as part of their practice. But it doesn't mean we have to be passive and not try to change the karma. Nothing wrong with that. It's and that's what compassion is, Stina. You reaching out and helping people, those who have the karma to be helped. This is marvelous. Do you understand?
I do. Yeah. I've been a bit.
A marvelous practice. To save someone from going to prison is a marvelous practice, you know, on the Bodhisattva path. It's a very special practice to do it for the especially with a pure motivation.
Yeah, we don't.
But
I don't work with criminal cases. It's discrimination cases, but it's still important.
Yes. Of course. No, say it again. Start again. I missed you.
I don't work with criminal cases. We work with anti-discrimination cases.
Okay, good. Whatever the story
but
is.
It's important.
No, it's amazing to do this, to stop. I mean, to help people, to help human beings in general, in any way, offering a spoonful of food to a dog. Any action we can do to alleviate the obvious gross suffering of sentient beings. How marvelous. How wonderful, Stina. It's a marvelous thing. So you do it with a very happy mind, but you can also see some people can't be helped because they don't have the karma to be helped. That's the point, you see. It's not, you understand, but it's marvelous to want to help people in any way. You're doing a great job. And that is, but the people have to have the karma with you for them to be helped. That's the point.
I'll remember that in the cases where we fail as well, because I mean, of course, we don't always succeed with our missions.
Yes, that's right. That's because the people don't have the karma to be helped. That's how it is. Absolutely. That's the point. Which doesn't mean you don't create the virtuous karma. You did try to help, but because you weren't successful, doesn't mean you didn't do a good job. That's a very important point. Do you understand?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a very good point. Listen, I've got to just do something for my lighting. I've got this new little light. Look at my little new light. Look at this that I put on my computer. I had this great big gigantic thing before, and I don't like it much, but it's not too bad. But I've got to charge it. It's running out. Hang on a second. Hang on a second. Or see if I can do it. Maybe I can't. That looks better, yeah. Maybe that's better. I don't know. We'll see. Okay. Okay, talk to me then. Who was there? Samuel, talk to me, darling. Yes, sweetheart, talk to me.
Hello.
Hello there.
Uh,
Happy to see
I
you.
have a question. So
Yes.
is there any difference in the subjective experience of a liberated being and of a being in the formless realms, according to
Oh,
the
totally
Mahayana?
different, radically different. Yes, a formless being has got such deep concentration that they are just in the deepest of the subtlest state of absorption. They don't even have gross any kind of physical energy. But a person who's liberated, who's realized emptiness, let's say, and who's in nirvana, that's a more radiantly blissful state, and they're out of samsara, so the bliss will be far more joyful. The person in the formless state is not out of samsara yet. They're still grasping, they're still ego grasping. So the person in liberation is far more radiant and far more joyful and far more blissful than the person, I would suggest, than the person in the formless realm. Yeah.
Mhm.
You understand?
Okay, so it's a question of degree, basically.
I suppose a question of degree, yeah, I suppose. I mean, the formless realm is such a deep absorption. It's almost like a neutral state, whereas the liberated one is a proactively blissful state.
Mhm.
I don't know enough about that. I haven't studied enough, but I think it's quite a qualitative difference as well.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Good,
Okay.
Samuel. Thank you. So, okay, people, let's talk about now the final stages of the path, which is the compassion wing. So we've looked at the preliminaries. We've talked about the necessity for a teacher very briefly. We've talked about the nature of mind, how it's beginningless and has this marvelous potential. We've talked about how we need to cultivate the energy to not waste this precious life. And now we enter into the path. We increase our wish not to waste this precious life by thinking about death and impermanence. We then increase our wish not to waste this energy, this perfect human rebirth, because we then start to think of the options of a type of rebirth. We don't want to have a suffering rebirth. So now we turn to the Buddha. We take refuge in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, and now we think, now I must start taking the medicine, applying the Buddha's advice, which we begin to practice. So we abide by the laws of karma, the basic principle being that everything I think and do and say produces the person I become. And honey child, I do not want to be born in the lower realms. I do not want to be born having negative things happen to me, be lied to, stolen from, blah, 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 even in the human life. So what do? I stop causing it. I abide by the 10 non-virtues. I don't kill, don't steal, don't jump on the wrong partner, don't lie, don't badmouth people behind their backs, don't abuse people, and don't rabbit on about nothing. 10 little, and then 3 of the mind, beginning to work on the grossest level of aversion, attachment, and ego grasping. And then learning, and then I would also add this to this purification, so that I'm ensured that when I die, I'll get a decent human rebirth, and I'll keep on moving on my spiritual path. So now we go to high school, and now we drill down and get into the mind itself, which we talked about. And we start to become familiar with the delusions, in particular attachment. Attachment's the essence of it. Attachment for the Four Noble Truths, as far as Buddha is concerned, is the main cause of suffering in this daily life. And it's the source of all the suffering of all the realms. This is a desire realm we're in. It's either in this desire realm, you've either got bucket loads of bliss, or you've got intense lack of bliss, which is the lower realms. So we've got to give up attachment and the rest of the delusions, the grosser delusions, So this is renunciation of suffering and its causes. And now we go to the next scope. And now we realize, oh my God, we're in the same boat as everybody else. Everybody else is in the same boat. Everybody's suffering as a result of their negative karma. Everybody is ignorant and doesn't realize that they're suffering as a result of karma. They blame everybody else. They say the Bodhisattvas, this is the greatest source of the compassion. Forget about not realizing emptiness, but not realizing cause and effect, which means in daily life, look at the world. Everybody thinks that the suffering comes from outside. Everybody thinks that the happiness comes from the outside. This is the grossest mistake we make. So therefore, we only increase our suffering. We don't even not stop our suffering, but we increase our suffering by following attachment, When we realize, my God, everybody's the same. And then because you've done the work of the junior school and high school, you've got some renunciation, some ability to control your body and speech. You only now want to continue to work on your mind in reference to helping others. So we practice those various stages that culminate in bodhicitta. So what are they? We start with equanimity. So it's continuing to work on your mind. That never changes, but the emphasis now is on lessening your delusions so that you can be of benefit to others. In the wisdom wing, you're lessening delusions so that you will stop suffering. The shift is quite huge. So here we want to get equanimity, the first of the 11 little techniques. There's different techniques that are taught that culminate in bodhicitta. One is the 6 causes and 1 effect, and one is called the one of exchanging self for others. But there's another one, and I discussed this one in the course notes. It consists of 11 little techniques, and it's a combination of these 2 methods. Pabonka Rinpoche talks about it in Liberation. So the first of these is equanimity. So equanimity is, what is that? It's this heartfelt recognition that enemy, friend, and stranger are equal to each other from one point of view. And that one point of view is that they each only want happiness and each only don't want suffering. So equanimity is the recognition of that. It's very precise. And that's immense already. If we can begin to get equanimity, it's pretty powerful. It's a state of mind that when we see the enemy, friend, and stranger, we can recognize clearly that they are equal to each other. In other words, with equanimity, you get yourself out of the equation. Right now, the universe runs on the 3 poisons. And so naturally, all sentient beings are seen through the lenses of the 3 poisons. Everybody has those who are the objects of their attachment. So they're the ones we adore. They're the ones we take care of. That's the universe. Dogs, monkeys, and ants do the same. Everybody has objects of aversion, whom we can call enemies, who we don't like because they've harmed us. And everybody has objects of indifference, which is 99.99% of the universe. And why? Because they neither harm nor help us. This is very shocking. We should be embarrassed if we see this, that we see the whole universe through the lenses of these 3 delusions. So what we're trying to do with equanimity is get beyond that. Start at least to recognize that friends, enemies, and strangers are equal from this one point of view. So that's what you try to practice every day. And how would you practice that every day? Well, you've got your beloved grandchild and they're playing with a smelly kid next door who is for you the object of aversion. So straight away you go, excuse me, Rabina, my little beloved angel wants to be happy just like the smelly kid wants to be happy. And you start to see objectively they're both equal from that point of view. This is already profound. So then that leads us to then go to the next of these 11 steps. And we start to think about how all sentient beings have been our mother. You just need your calculator for this one. Given that every sentient being is beginningless and there are trillions of sentient beings, it follows logically we bumped into each other countless lifetimes. I mean, it's hilarious. Of course it is. And logically, they've all been our mum. So why our mum? We're very shocked about this because we think that means we're supposed to suffer because we think our mums cause us suffering. Well, from the, this Asian point of view, mothers are considered to be kind. Okay, our mums can be pretty neurotic. So here, at least we're looking at the logic that we've all got this countless numbers of lifetimes with countless numbers of sentient beings, and they've nurtured and nourished us and taken care of us at least one time. So then the next point is we think now, well, the mother is kind. And there are 2 points here, 3A and 3B. 3A is the mother is kind, and we'll discuss that. And then 3B is more dramatic, is that all sentient beings are kind. And what does that mean? Well, first of all, let's look at the analysis here that the word kind has a different meaning. When we say a person is kind, I'm sorry to say, usually it's self-centered. We mean they're kind to me. Well, your ex-husband is being very kind to his wife, his new wife, but not to you. So you think he's a creep. So kind here is not so much that they're personally kind to me or even have a kind nature. Please hear the point. But that the fact that this is, first of all, the first one, your mother's kind, the fact that she did anything at all to facilitate your life. So first of all, the mother one, I think, is a really good example for all of us, especially for those of us who think our mothers are creeps, It's a very powerful meditation to do. You're learning to see your mother through a different lens. So this is the point. Your mother might be a creep. She might be attached. She might be possessive. She might be deluded. Excuse me, folks, what's so special? Join the universe. She's exactly like you. But our trouble is, because of this primordial attachment we have, and because of the view in our world that our mother is our creator, we all seem to have this intense assumption that our mother should be a saint. I'm so ridiculous, And then we are so offended that our mother dare to do anything naughty to us. And the number of books that are written in the West about how wicked the people's mothers are is so shocking. You know, it's just so shocking. So here, the shift we're trying to do is at least, how about get yourself out of the equation. Yes, your mother's a neurotic person. First of all, because you understand karma, you created the cause to have that neurotic mummy. So you take responsibility. Then when you study the mind, you realize she's got attachment as well. So you start to know how she's thinking and why she's thinking the way she is, because she's just like you. And then you start to think about, to change your view of your neurotic mother, you start to make a little list, please. And this is a good meditation. Write it down. The good things she's done for you. Well, you know what? The very first thing she did for you was she didn't abort you. This is so shocking. I remember a friend years ago, I met this man who said that his mother told him, and he was like 40 at the time, that she was going to have an abortion. She was in the hospital, everything was organized. She was ready to go to wherever she had to go to the next step to have the abortion. She had her hand on the doorknob and she changed her mind. And he could not get over this. He blew his mind that his mother consciously decided not to kill him. So the gratitude to his mother. So this is something I find many people have been given away by their mummies. And many of us who are given away have this suffering, this resentment, this hurt, this pain, because mummy gave us away. Well, you know what, people? She didn't abort you. I aborted my baby when I was 23. I'm not trying to be dramatic. Lots of us have had abortions. Just giving the example. I decided to abort this baby. Yeah, due to their karma too. But your mother didn't abort you. She might be neurotic, but she bore you for 9 months. She gave birth to you. She fed you with her little breast, no doubt. She cleaned your bottom. She tied your shoe nails. Yeah, she's angry and neurotic as well. So start making a list of your mother's good qualities. Start painting a new picture of your mother, because you see the mother through the lenses of all the unhappy things she's done and the ugly things she's done and the mean things she's done, because that's, of course, you've painted an ugly mummy. Well, start painting a nice mummy so you can begin to have compassion for her and be grateful that she did anything at all to facilitate your life. It's a very profound meditation to do. So the other one, 3B, if you like, is all beings are kind, and it's the same logic, but it means every sentient being. And this is really based on dependent arising, and this is logical. So what does this mean? Basically, that since your conception in your mummy's womb, there's not a single thing that has facilitated your life up to now that isn't the handiwork of countless sentient beings. You've got to unpack this and see the truth of it. So this is very powerful, even more when you think of the kindness of sentient beings. They're not kind. In other words, think of one small thing. I always think of my navy blue socks, okay? I like my navy blue socks. I like to be color coordinated. Even in my maroon robes, I try to have the same color maroon for my jacket. I can't stand all these different maroons. I hate it. It's so gross. So we also have this blue. Have a look at this blue thing. Can you see it here? I will show this. See this little blue? You can't see it, maybe a bit of blue there. That's out of respect to the Chinese monks back in the 8th, 9th, 10th century, at some point in Tibet when some naughty king was trying to kill all the Sangha, and they snuck over the border from China. They must have worn blue, this monk, so they could keep the quota going to have ordination so the Dharma wouldn't die out. So out of respect to that monk. So this is this blue here. So I like to have my navy blue socks. So I look kind of color coordinated. I've got to travel around the world. I've got to look decent. I can't look like some terrorist, with ugly looking clothes. As Lama Zopa said, when he saw us, first of all, the hippies becoming monks and nuns looking really ugly with dirty robes, he said, you people don't understand it. That does not work in your culture. You seem like an ugly homeless person. Maybe in Tibet, people appreciate homeless people, because they're called yogis and they respect them. But not in the West. We've got to look nice and clean, So anyway, I'm just talking here, raging on about my navy blue socks. And I like knee-length socks because we have these ridiculous skirts, and I can't stand just ankle socks because the rest of your legs get cold, right? So I wore my navy. So when I go to look for my navy blue socks, whether it's to Kmart or the fanciest shop on the planet, I'm homing in and I want my navy blue socks. Well, now let's analyze my navy blue socks. I go to the sock department and they're hanging on a little hanger, aren't they? On their cute little thing with a little word, and there's a piece of cardboard and it's written on it the name of the sock company and then the size of the socks, and it's 60% polyester, 40% cotton, whatever. All this information. Now, think about this. Somebody made that label. Somebody typed the words. Somebody wrote the words. Mr. Macintosh, created the computer that the person used to type the words, somebody edited those words so I could understand them, so I can recognize what size and what socks that I can choose. Somebody, that's just the label. Somebody made that little cute hanger. Some clever human being. Now, somebody made the socks, all the people involved in making those socks, the people in the factory. Now, the fact of the matter is, the person who invented the hanger, he might be a pedophile. I don't care. That's not the issue here. Why is he kind? Because that facilitates me as a sock shopper to find the sock that I want neatly in its own packet, in its own hanger with the prices on it. All the sentient beings, if you lined them all up, there'd be thousands of sentient beings involved in me being able to find my socks. Now, they are kind. Not because in their nature they're kind, but because their work facilitated me getting my proper blue socks. This is, now you look at everything since you were born, everything since you were conceived. My mother, my mother and father very happily joined their egg and sperm. They had to work pretty hard. So then what happened since the time I was conceived? My mother ate food. I think she ate meat. So all those bulls that she ate and the fishes and the chickens she ate, what happened to that food? It went in her mouth, down to her belly, and it turned into my body. So this little 7-year, I came out when I was 7 months, apparently, a bit early, kind of impatient, no doubt. And I came out. So the little 7-month-old fetus, it was basically, it was a combination of fishes and chickens and meat. All those kind sentient beings whom my mother ate. What is this precious body of mine but their flesh? So even your body is a mountain of other creatures and all those veggies. My body, how arrogant. This is why the Bodhisattva, one point, Kirti Senchab Rinpoche said one time, he said that a certain level of Bodhisattva, for that Bodhisattva, cutting off their hand and giving it to a starving animal, that action is as inconsequential as a leaf falling off a tree, because they realize the kindness of sentient beings. That's not their body. How arrogant, I mean, look at us with, as Lama Zopa says, a mosquito wants just one tiny drop of blood. Look at the panic attack we have. How dare that mosquito take my precious blood? So this meditation on the kindness of all sentient beings, that everything we've ever had that facilitates our life is the work of sentient beings. I mean, it would make you weep every second. And then the next one is, the fourth one, I must repay their kindness. This is logic. These are meditations you would do for years in the mountains, Then the next 4 or 5 are coming from the exchanging self for others approach, which is more now the gradual methods for gradually making this paradigm shift in the mind that culminates in bodhicitta, where now others are more important than me. So this is really showing levels. When we start to look at the levels of love and compassion and great compassion and bodhicitta that we're able to accomplish, these are not possible if you haven't done high school and junior school. As Pabonka Rinpoche says, these practices, especially exchanging self for others, you're going to be a suitable vessel. You need to be a suitable vessel to go to university in math. Of course you do. So we can practice them, but to realize them, that of course is the difference, isn't it? So all these marvelous practices of exchanging yourself, using logic to argue with ego's instinctive craving to put me first, which is the function of the delusions. So the main thing here is in the wisdom wing, the main emphasis is on how attachment is the cause of suffering. Here, in the compassion wing, there's a different emphasis. They talk about the main cause of suffering is called selfishness, or the way they say it in Tibetan, self-cherishing. So that's a consequence of attachment, that naturally we put me first. So of course, in our culture, the very nature of who we are is considered reasonable to put yourself first. You'd be considered mentally ill if you didn't put yourself first. So this is a really powerful point, and we need to hear it very carefully, really skillfully, really wisely. So you've got to be a suitable vessel. And this is, of course, this is described very radically in the in the culmination to get bodhicitta, this amazing, outrageous text called the 8 Verses of Mind Training. You know, these are ones where we can perfect this bodhicitta, where we can perfect this exchanging self for others. So here, you know, those 8 verses are going through the very logical, the different practices where we're trying to smash the putting of I first. So when you are a suitable vessel at this level of practice, then, for example, one of the verses would say, when you're with others, see yourself as the lowest of all and see them as supreme. I mean, this is just beyond shocking in our ordinary way of seeing the world. And if we are still at the level of not having done any work on our mind, haven't even done junior school, not to mention high school, we are literally not capable of even hearing this instruction. So we need to be a suitable vessel. That means at least here, understanding intellectually what it means. Why would you want to see yourself as the lowest of all? This language is too shocking in our culture. We can't hear it properly. Sure, reword it, put it in other words that are more reasonable, but we've got to hear the logic of it. Because the instinct of ego is I always comes first. This is the point. And then, so when this is one marvelous, this is the compassion wing approach to putting atomic bombs under self-cherishing. And then you combine that with understanding emptiness, they work beautifully together to smash the delusions so you can become a Buddha, you know. So you exchange, finally, you know, Tonglen is expressed in, like, I think the 7th verse, the 6th verse, the 7th verse of these 8. And this is where you know, this is the culmination of this development of bodhicitta. That's the culmination of these 11. And this is where you do the actual exchanging self for others. So this Tonglen meditation is this marvelous practice where you would it's done as a meditation, where you would visualize somebody in front of you, say, with a headache. And so the Tonglen meditation, Tonglen means giving, taking. So what you do is you do the taking first. You'd imagine like your self-cherishing is like a little rock at your heart. And then you would breathe in this person's headache. You would visualize breathing in this person's headache, their suffering, like yucky smoke. And the attitude would be that you're happy for them to be free of the suffering, and you would rather have the suffering than them. That's the attitude. I would rather suffer than them. So you've got to be brave to be like that. Come on, you know. This is outrageous attitude. So you can breathe it in and visualize your little self-cherishing rock at the heart being smashed. Then when you breathe out, it's the giving part. You breathe this radiant white light and you give them all your merit, all your health, all your goodness, and you'd see them be happy. So the taking upon yourself of their suffering is the practice of compassion, may you not suffer. And the giving of all your good things to them is the practice of love, may you be happy. This is the practice of Tonglen, which is the final stages of these 11 that culminate eventually in this actual paradigm shift. And that would be bodhicitta, when now the first second of bodhicitta would be when there's no longer the thought of I in the ordinary sense. And there's only the thought of others. So it's a pretty intense level. It's not just flashes of it. It's not just moments of it. It will be an actual realization where it would be stable, you know. So of course we can practice this every day, but the accomplishment of this is another discussion altogether. And then from there on, once you've accomplished bodhicitta, you go to the final stages of your practice of the compassion wing, and you would now, over life after life after life, you'd perfect these 6 perfections over many lifetimes. And eventually the culmination is your Buddhahood, you know. So the first of the 6 perfections would be the perfection of generosity, the perfection of giving, where you learn. And again, so it's seen, Tsongkhapa says in one of his lamrim texts, that generosity is the wish-fulfilling jewel with which you can fulfill the hopes of all sentient beings, and it's the basis of the activity of the Bodhisattva. It's the start of these, and each perfection gets more difficult as they go along, you know. So this first one, it's obvious the point here of giving, of generosity, is this conscious practice of when you see sentient beings, and this is the job description of a bodhisattva, what can I do? How can I help? That's the job description of a bodhisattva. Right now, if we're still at the lower levels and haven't done much inner work, we only see sentient beings through the lenses of what they do for us. We like the ones who help us. We don't like the ones who don't, and we couldn't care less about the rest. That's samsara. Here, we've made this amazing shift, and now we've got bodhicitta, we imagine. So our job description, it's like we're the parent, we're like the mother for every being on the universe. When a mother sees her baby, she doesn't wonder who's going to feed it. She has compassion, but she doesn't think, well, who's going to feed my baby? She knows it's her job. Now, this is great compassion. It's a very unique quality of compassion. This is back before you even get bodhicitta, okay? Compassion is this, where you see another suffering, it's sort of like, oh my God, look at that suffering. That's compassion. Great compassion is very powerful, and that's the unique one of the Bodhisattva path. Great compassion says, what can I do? It's like this universal responsibility, this personal responsibility. It's my job, just like the mother. The mother does not think who's going to feed my baby. You know, your baby could be drowning. You're going to have incredible compassion, but you're not going to think who's going to save my baby. Even if you can't swim, you know it's your job and you jump in the water. That's great compassion. It's the unique one of the Bodhisattva. And this is the difference between the compassion of a person on the Hinayana path and the compassion of the Bodhisattva. This is not kind of meant to be sectarian. It's just levels of realizations. So if you're on the Hinayana path and you've accomplished liberation, what are you like? Well, you've given up all delusions. What have you got left? Only joy, only bliss, only love, only compassion. They can't disappear. They're not possible. They're your nature. So you'd have unbelievable compassion. But the difference is this: over life after life after life, if you're on the Theravadan path, if you're on the path of individual liberation, you're motivated by, I must get out of samsara. I must get out of samsara. So you do all these practices of the first stages and second stages. You finally achieve renunciation. You achieve emptiness. You achieve liberation. And in whatever life it is that you achieve that liberation, you know, at the time you die, your compassion, you've got bucket loads of compassion. What else could you have? But that is overridden, one, by your motivation from life after life. I must get out of samsara. And your bliss overrides the compassion and you don't come back. But if you're on the Mahayana path, because you've got this great compassion, you cultivate the great compassion, it's my job. Even if you get to the stage of being liberated, you still will want to come back, because when you die, your bliss and your is overridden by your great compassion and your bodhicitta. And even if you don't need to be reborn, you only want to be reborn so you can become a Buddha, so you can benefit others. So there's this major difference of great compassion. It's not just some kind of vague term. It's a technical term, mahakaruna, great compassion. And you must cultivate that. That's that brave attitude of the Bodhisattva. What can I do? And this is the thing we can see in the world. We get overwhelmed by the suffering, isn't it? We get overwhelmed. This is what drags many of us down. But this is the attitude of the Bodhisattva. You have compassion, but you know why they're suffering, karma, but then you say, what can I do to help? That gives you courage. You can't do much. If you can go to Iraq, Iran, every damn country on the planet tomorrow and take away all the suffering, then you go. But we know it's not possible. So what do? You do what you can for whoever is in front of you. Don't just think about the poor suffering babies over 1,000 miles away. Look at the ant right now and benefit the ant, benefit the dog, benefit the next door neighbor. When you do what you can for each sentient being in front of you, that gives you courage and optimism. And it's the energy of the Bodhisattva who will never give up, life after life after life. So generosity is the first of this. You give sentient beings what they need. Instead of seeing the rat and going, yuck, rat, you think, what does the rat need? You know, you give what they need, each sentient being in front of you. This is profound. So generosity is at 3 levels. The first level is just give.
Then you're on mute.
So there's different levels of
Venerable, again. Sorry.
Giving. The first level of generosity, there are 3, is giving material things. The second one is said to be more difficult, giving spiritual advice, but I think it's the other way around for us. We love giving spiritual advice, even when we're not qualified. We're so rude, you know, but give $1, we get nervous. €1, £1, we think, oh no. Well, so we've got to cultivate this generosity. It's a profound generosity, giving material things. And why not money? Because it's a symbol of things, isn't it? It's the language we use in our culture. So, you know, so your best way to do is budget in some giving, like the Mormons, you know, they budget it into their line item. They have a line item called giving. We will tend to think, well, I'm poor, I can't give anything, I'll give a banana instead. Okay, give a banana, you know, but the homeless people would prefer to have $1 or £1. Well, 5 actually. 1 is pathetic. And even 20 years ago, and I had thought about this when I was living in San Francisco, I decided $1 was a joke. So when I go out, I knew I'd meet the junkies, I knew I'd meet the alcoholics. So I gave them 5s and 10s. I'm not trying to show off, I just had to practice. Even now, $5, what can you do with €5, £5? You get half a cup of coffee or something. So we've got to practice giving, and it means practice means when you have to stretch yourself. You be reasonable, don't be silly. You give what you can, but you know these days you're going to meet homeless people. It's a great example of giving because it really it tests us, you know. We walk into the coffee shop and we spend £10 maybe or €10 on one little coffee and a cake. And we're very happy if you analyze when you go to a shop, because we're all business is commerce based, and there's some profit built in, isn't there? And we know that. So basically, when you go to the coffee shop, you know that like 10%, 20% is pure profit. You're giving a 20% donation to the coffee shop, but we don't mind because we call it business. But you give, even to give a 5 cents to the poor homeless person whom you get nothing in return from, that we get nervous about. So we've got to analyze, you know. Practicing generosity is, and this is the point about all these practices, you are the beneficiary as well. This is your practice of you opening your mind, connecting with sentient beings and wishing to help them. First materially, then of course spiritually, of course. The third level of generosity sounds odd. It's called giving protection. You know, saving an animal from being killed, saving a person from prison. These things, that's giving protection, all kinds of that type of generosity. The next one is called the practice of morality, of ethics. Well, the whole path is that, but there's different levels of ethics, okay? The level of ethics, first of all, is living in vows. There's the 3 sets of vows. The pratimoksha vows, which are the vows of junior school and high school, are the vows of not killing, stealing, lying, all the monk and nun vows. And they are all, and vows by definition are not this and don't do that and don't do this. So the emphasis in the very first level is to not kill, steal, lie because you don't want the future suffering. The next level is still this level of vows in the bodhisattva vows, where you refrain from this and refrain from that. Still, they are the vows of the one of not harming others. But here it's more shifting to how to be of benefit to others. And the bodhisattva vows are more advanced. They're more to help you benefit others. But they still are these are called the morality of restraint. The morality of refraining from harming. So when we get to this level of morality here in the 6 perfections, this is the most advanced level of ethics. It's the morality of benefiting others, because now you're wise enough to know how to benefit. So we perfect that here, helping others, whoever needs to be helped, the rich, the poor, the ugly, you help whoever needs to be helped, based on wisdom, of course. So that the work that Stina's doing, that's an obvious kind of helping. You help by giving advice, but you also can help by, you know, if you're a bodhisattva, you'll help in a wrathful way. For example, I always tell the story when my mother first met Lama Yeshe, and she got upset by him. But I had the feeling when I heard this story that my Lama was being wise. He kind of hooked my mother. So he'll meet her again in future lives and lead her to enlightenment. So it reminded me of the story I heard about this bodhisattva, because bodhisattvas, once they've realized bodhicitta, they're bopping along from life to life very consciously, but not looking like, they don't walk around with halos. They don't always walk around looking like monks or nuns. They could be regular Joe. They could be the homeless person down the road. It could be this wacky next door neighbor. You don't know who anybody is. You don't judge, you know, because bodhisattvas can take any form you like. So there's this lovely story about this one bodhisattva, because one of the key jobs of bodhisattvas, they want to lead every damn sentient being to enlightenment. So they're going to have to hook them. They're going to do whatever it takes to hook, to connect with a sentient being. So their job is to make, long-term benefit, hook, connect with sentient beings, make eyeball-to-eyeball contact. Well, bodhisattvas, because they're so advanced, can benefit in different ways. One way is peaceful. The best way is to benefit others, to hook them peacefully, to be nice to them. But there was in this one village, this bodhisattva bopping along and being his bodhisattva in his life. He hooked all the people in the village by being nice to them. But one old lady didn't notice him. And he couldn't leave her behind. He needed a karmic connection with her. So he discovered she had a beautiful garden. So he rode his horse through her garden. Well, guess what? She now noticed him. He got her. He got her. He hooked her. She was shouting and yelling and shooting, shaking her fist. And they probably threw him out of the village. He didn't care because he hooked her. That means that she'll meet him again in 27 lives whenever he's ready to lead her to enlightenment, whenever she's ready to be led to enlightenment, and he would have got her. So as this Lama said, who told the story, when it comes to bodhisattvas, it's better to have a bad connection with them, to shout and yell and shoot and shake your fist at them, than to have none. So my mum was like that. My mother was, a marvelous woman. I adore my mother. She was a darling person with her 7 children. She thought of us all her life. I know that. But she was bossy. And she was proud. She never told people her problems. People always came to her. So when she met Lama Yeshe, because he's so powerful and charismatic, she kind of got nervous. I introduced him to her, and she started pouring out all her dramas about me, because we had a very volatile relationship. So she became very vulnerable. She came out of the meeting, I'll never forget, and I knew he had touched her heart deeply, but she was really mad at him. She said, he kept looking at the television while I was talking. So he got her, he hooked her. She would never have remembered him otherwise, And then the day she died, he was the first person I told about, and he did prayers for my mother. So he got her. He helped my mum. So your bodhisattvas will do anything to help you, including be mean to you if they have to, because they can, because they've got no delusions, Of course, we don't like that. We're running out of time. 10 minutes. We're okay. We nearly finished the path. So anyway, the practice of morality. So they're bopping along life after life, hooking sentient beings, helping in whatever way is necessary, wrathfully, peacefully, whatever's wise, because they've got no ego. There's no ego involved. The next one is called patience. This is like the transforming problems, which we didn't really go much about, but this is the powerful level of practice of the bodhisattvas. Patience. Patience we think of as like as passive aggression. We think of patience as gritting your teeth. It's just anger, but suppressed. That's not patience. Patience is an outrageous state of mind. It's brave, huge, big state of mind. It means happily greeting a problem. So what's a problem? A problem is by definition what your attachment doesn't want. Patience is you pull up your sleeves and you bring on the problem, baby. The person being mean to you. You greet it. You're glad because it just smashed your attachment. It just smashed your anger. You've got to be advanced to do this. There's different levels of patience. The patience of, listen to this, they call it the patience of accepting abuse. This sounds too heavy for our minds. Of course, according to your capacity. Of course it is. And why? Because you want to smash delusions. Why? Because they're the obstacle to you becoming a Buddha. And you'll do anything to smash the obstacles to becoming a Buddha because your compassion is so enormous. Then there's the patience of accepting the problems of life, when things go wrong and you struggle with money or with health. There's all these different levels of patience. And it makes you brave and huge and confident because you're smashing your delusions. And you want to smash your delusions because they prevent you from helping others. That's the logic behind all this. It's not some kind of horrible practice, how we think of it. The next one is, the fourth one is the most powerful, the most necessary of these 4. And we've talked about this, I'm sure. And it's called, and we'll go into more detail, much more, when we get to the compassion wing module. But this one, it's enthusiasm or joyful effort. And so the best way to understand it is in the framework of the opposite. And we'll all recognize. The Lamas say you cannot achieve anything without enthusiasm and perseverance. And we know that. You can't achieve a damn thing if you don't persevere. So what is the obstacle? And it's called laziness. And this is very shocking to us. Laziness, there's 3 levels. The first one is ordinary, can't be bothered. It's too much effort. So what is this? Analyze it. Attachment is the problem. We are all complete junkies to be in our comfort zone. The most gross level is the comfort zone of the senses. So of course it's too much effort, because effort by definition is pushing yourself beyond your attachment to go to the next level. So use ordinary examples of going to the gym. The enthusiasm they're talking here is actually in spiritual practice, not going to the gym. But let's use the example, the analogy. You go to the gym, and if you just decide, I'm going to go to the gym, and you hop on your rowing machine, and you're doing it, and then the second you start to sweat, the second your muscles hurt, think of what happens. You go, oh, too much effort, I'll stop now. And then you pretend, oh, I went to the gym. No, you didn't. Nothing will change until you start to hurt. Nothing will change until you start to sweat. We know that. That's what has to happen here. Effort is what you have to do to go beyond the craving of the attachment to stay comfortable. And we, of course, don't want that, because we only want to be comfortable. So emotional is intensely more difficult than physical. So effort, the first one is go against your comfort zone. It's unbelievably powerful. Now, the next one, they mix these two together, they join these two together, but I think it's good to see them as separate. The second one is so wicked. It's called, oh, I'm too busy, I'll do it later. This is our worst crime. And what is the thing you say you're too busy to do that you think you'll do later is the thing that takes too much effort. And what is that? The thing that attachment doesn't like. So it's like double trouble laziness, because it sounds like a virtue, but we know later never comes. This is our worst crime against ourselves. We put off doing things. So we're just talking our practice here. We put it off. So then in the end, you just build it up and you carry around like a tortoise with their house, all this guilt and the burden of undone things. And the lamas say one of the saddest ways to die is with all these unfulfilled aspirations. And now it's too late, So this is really powerful. And the thing is, and this is why the word joyful effort, when you really do make effort incrementally, then you get pleasure from it. Even if you just want to give up attachment to too much cake, think of this. Every time you give in to the cake, you think you're going to get the pleasure. You get a bit of temporary pleasure, but in the end, you're left with feeling guilty. You're left with indigestion, and you get too fat. But if you exercise your courage to say, no, I won't have the cake, initially it's difficult, but you make the effort. What did you just do? You just tasted your potential. And that's what happiness comes from. We have to be logical with ourselves, because attachment's very primordial. Attachment to be comfortable, just to be easygoing and relaxed. But you won't move 1 inch if you don't make effort. But it's got to be progressive. It's got to be gradual. You can't suddenly do 57 push-ups at once. You do move forward, and then you rejoice in your effort. And the next day you bit more. And that's where even merely in our practice, the discipline of doing something every morning and every night. Already for most of us, this takes tremendous effort, because we will find everything else is more important. Within 3 seconds in the morning, you've already decided, no, I'll do my practice later. And you feel relieved because you think you got off the hook, but you made more problems for yourself. So making effort is the tremendous, clear psychological method to develop yourself, to grow, to become the person you want to become. And it's the most important of the 4, because if you don't, you can have patience, you can practice ethics, you can practice generosity, but if you don't make effort, you won't grow, you won't go further, you stay stuck. This is quite profound, really marvelous. And the last 2, in the last 3 minutes, well, we have to go over time a bit. The last 2 are that's the perfection of the compassion wing. Now we've got the last 2 of the 6, and this is the perfection of the wisdom wing, and it's concentration, meditation, and the realization of emptiness. So we've covered the whole path, but I haven't said a word about concentration and emptiness. I'll just say them briefly here. We're going to go into this in great depth later, obviously. In your course notes, there's plenty of stuff in the course notes for you to study about this. So concentration is shamatha, known in Sanskrit as shamatha. Calm abiding. It's the name given to the end result of this technique. Your mind will be at a subtler level. It'll be absolutely radiantly joyful. It'll be super sharp, super clear, laser-like. It's like the microscope of your mind. The benefits alone of just achieving shamatha are mind-boggling. Lama Yeshe talks about it in Mahamudra, but that's not the point. This is just the bonus. The point of shamatha, the point of getting single point of concentration, the point is so that you've got this laser-like brilliant level of mind that you now utilize to cut the root of all delusions and realize the ultimate way that things exist, which is the realization of dependent arising and emptiness, quote unquote. That's the purpose of it. And that's the fifth and the sixth of these. So the great bodhisattvas going from life to life, the first four perfections are what they practice in relation to sentient beings day by day. And the last two are what they perfect in their meditation. And then you combine these six and you've accomplished the perfection of the two wings of the bird and you eventually become Buddha. But before that, and added into your practice as a postgraduate, you add into this, and this is certainly in the Tibetan tradition, you add into this Vajrayana. You take empowerments into the different practices. You take the tantric vows, and this puts this rocket boost under your practice, and you achieve Buddhahood very, very quickly with the understanding of these Vajrayana practices. So that's the path to enlightenment, folks. Any questions? And that's the whole, all the modules altogether, the 14 modules, and that's the entire lamrim. So before we finish, are there any questions? Next week, you see, I'm supposed to teach. Next week, the next module is the spiritual teacher, but I have to tell you, I don't think I'm going to be able to teach about it for 4 weeks. I really don't think so. I really don't think I'm possible. I teach about it in a very simple way because, I mean, you've got to have to study the notes, the course notes. You read all those things in there, please. I really want you to really focus on that. I just can't do it. I just don't know how to do it. I'm so sorry. So you have to make much of our classes. Maybe we'll have a shorter class and you'll have longer discussions and you'll make extra time of studying these course notes, all the things that are there. This is good enough for you to study. And then we can use these as the basis for your questions for me, because I just don't do it in the traditional way. I can't. I don't know how to do it like that. I'm not trying to be strange. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but we'll work out something for our 4 weeks. But, you know, I need you to study the course notes, and that'll be the bulk of what you'll do in these next 4 weeks. And my classes might be very short. I'll answer questions and I'll talk about it in my friendly, silly, chatty way. You know, I can't do more. Okay. What else? That's enough, I think. Not even got a week off. Maybe we'll have a week off. I think we'll do that. Okay. How about that, folks? You're shocked? Is that miserable? Is that no good for you? Class, if we have 1 week off and we have 3 weeks on the spiritual teacher, I think give yourselves a break. How about that? I think we should. I'll give you a week off. Okay.
It would be
wise. Say something to me, people.
Also because
Lars, say something. Are you frozen?
Yeah, I'm talking.
Are you all frozen?
It's December 23rd.
Yeah, I think you're frozen.
Christmas. So maybe it would be good idea to cancel the last one and maybe do a discussion group for the last time.
I think she froze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But until she comes back, I think on
And now you froze.
Monday when we have our meeting in the Discovering Buddhism group. Oh, that's fine.
You're back, my
we'll
friend.
Discuss whether we need to condense the teachings to treat.
Did you? When did you stop hearing me? What was the last thing you heard me say?
Whether or not we should cancel 1 week. And maybe.
Yeah, I think we should cancel the next week and have a break.
Yeah.
Go on. So what are you okay with that, Lars?
I think it would be wise to cancel the December 23rd because that's so close to Christmas Eve. And many people.
Oh, that's a good point. Okay.
And you're still frozen, Venerable.
Oh God, am I frozen again? Can't you hear me? No,
We're
Yeah,
back.
I will mail you,
Yeah.
Venerable. I will mail you, and we will notify everybody.
no, no, no. We'll talk about it now. Wait.
All right, all
We
right.
will talk about it now.
Excellent.
Wait. December. Okay, so
December
we've got
23rd, because it's the day
so
before
next-
Christmas, at
okay,
least in
wait,
my
wait.
culture.
Today 25. So 2,
In
9,
Denmark.
16, and 24.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
we'll
so we'll decide. Okay, so then we'll have
cancel
no, my
December
feeling is
23rd.
no, Lars, can you hear me?
Yes.
I want to cancel 2. We only need 2 teachings from me. I will cancel next week and I will cancel 23. I want you guys to study the course notes, to read the course notes, to think of this topic, and I will do 2 classes, which will be more than enough. Okay. I'm not trying to cheat you. I just know what I can and can't do, but I want you to study the course notes, think about it, read a little bit every day, meditate on it, and then we'll have lots of questions in my 2 weeks. Okay. Is that okay, people?
That's fine. Wonderful. Wonderful. And maybe we'll invite people to come to a discussion group next week.
I really want you to do that. Yes,
Yes.
exactly. Do that as much as you can, but read the course notes, read other books, read other things. There's lots of stuff published, read about it, because the way it's presented traditionally, it seems kind of so arcane and ancient and medieval. All the disadvantages of all the advantages I can't talk like that. I want to try and talk about it experientially, the benefit to our practice of having a living person be our mentor. I can talk about it in my way and try and enthuse you, but I want you to read all the course notes that are there from Connie and from Lama Zopa and from the others. Would you do that for me, people?
Yes.
Yes, we will.
So I'm leaving on the 30th. I'm coming off to Europe. You know that. I'm going to be in Europe. I'm leaving on Tuesday the 30th. I'll be in England first, and I'll be in France. I don't know where else I'll be. Italy first, and then France, and then who knows, and then England. So I'll see some of you. And I'm going to be in Zurich, of course. I'll be there for 10 days. So anyway, I'll continue doing our classes. I'm going to take a photo of my Buddha, so it won't look any different to you. I'll take a photo. I'll use that as my screenshot at the back. I'll see how that works, okay? So next time I talk to you, it's going to be the 9th. The 9th of January, the 9th of December. Okay. All right, darlings.
Thank you. Thank you very
So
much.
Jang Chub Semchog Rinpoche, Ma Ke Panam, Ke Guchi, Ke Panyampa, Mepa Yang, Gong Ne Gong Du Pawasho, Gewa Di Nudu Dag, Lama Sange, Lama, blah, blah, blah. I forgot it. Okay. So all of that. Okay. And may we all live a long life so we can be useful. Okay, everybody. All right.